Welcome to the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. Now enjoy the show. All right, guys, I want to tell you a little bit about Type 1 Lifting. So Type 1 Lifting is a clothing brand that proceeds of the shirts, the hats, and everything else go to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. This whole t-shirt company started from me taking care of a 5-year-old girl from the emergency department at the Children's Hospital I worked at in Atlanta for a while back. I thought I needed to do a little bit more than kind of just talk about my story. So this is how I started the clothing line, because I wanted to show people that even though diabetics have this really bad disease, we can still do amazing things in our life, and diabetes won't stop us reaching our goals. So go check out type1lifting.com. And, if you have any questions, you can always reach me out on Instagram. It's Type 1 Lifting, and hope you guys enjoy the show. Hey guys, we have a new sponsor for the Type 1 Lifting podcast. The company's called Liberté Lifestyle. So Liberté is a French word meaning freedom, and the company was founded on the desire to have freedom to choose what we want to do with our lives. I actually had the owner, Nicole, on my podcast on episode 28, so if you want to go back and listen to her, she talks about how she started the company and what she wants to do in the future with the company, which is pretty cool. So they actually have knee sleeves, wrist wraps, shirts, shorts. Love the knee sleeves. I have the ice cream knee sleeves, and I love them so much. The neoprene's still good. The seams haven't split compared to other knee sleeves that I have had in the past, and I'm planning to keep these for a very, very long time. So Nicole actually gave me a promo code for you guys too. So it's all capital letters, TYPE, and the number 1. So it's Type 1. So go to libertelifestyle.com, check out what they have in the store, use the promo code Type 1, and save some coin. Now let's go to the episode. All right, guys, welcome to a new episode of the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I have a very awesome guest. I was looking forward to doing this podcast with him. He is a IFBB pro and a doctor in chiropractic practice, Dr. Brett Kahn. How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I actually saw you. I think it was on. I know it was on Instagram, and so I saw you on someone's search page, and you came up, and I was like, oh snap, he's a diabetic too. That's awesome. Because I never really hear of too many diabetic bodybuilders, and you were kind of the first one to show up, and so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. There's there's not too many of us. Obviously, the difficulty of managing Type 1 is one thing, but then adding the component of bodybuilding, which similar to CrossFit in that manner, pushes your body in different directions and different things. And when your body composition is changing to add muscle and get this big and then get as lean as possible, there's a lot more that goes into it. Obviously, lows and highs and stuff can really deter someone from it. So it was a bit of a challenge at first, but one that I enjoyed and kind of continued on with.
Very cool. Now, when I was doing some research on you, I did listen to a couple podcasts. So what do you think about doing podcasts?
I've only done, I guess I've done a handful of them or so over the years, but yeah, they're cool. They're enjoyable. Usually, you get a little banter back and forth, learn something, from who's ever putting it on, like yourself. I just got a little bit of background on you, prior to this. And I was like, heck, I'm just going to jump in, answer the questions as they come, and then go from there. But yeah, man.
Very cool. No gotcha. I don't do gotcha moments. So just to let you know. So there's no gotcha stuff in here. So, I know I'm relatively new to the bodybuilding space, because I mainly do CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting, and I've always wanted to learn a little bit more in the space. But before I kind of talk about that, I always ask my diabetic guests, when did they get diagnosed with diabetes?
Yeah. So my story, I'll try to keep it, shorter, but I was a college athlete. So I played football at Michigan State University, and I think my pancreas just kind of slowly stopped making insulin really over the course of a year and a half. It seemed like a long, because I had a lot of the symptoms and they seemed to really kind of increase. And I wasn't officially diagnosed until right after a bowl game my senior year. I had played in the Champ Sports Bowl, and I was down about 24 pounds
Wow.
from like
Yeah.
my normal weight. I was already one of the smaller guys on the team. So I'm running down the field, Division I football, weighing like 160 something pounds, looking like, I was straight out of high school. But I should have been, at my biggest. And then I was working a summer job. It was just like a couple weeks after that. I remember just, mopping. I could only mop like maybe, a 5 foot space. And I was just like out of breath and just about to keel over. The doc called up and was like, yeah, we got your blood work in. Your blood sugar is 800. I was like, sounds like is that a good number? No, I don't know. And he's like, yeah, you need to go to the ICU right now,
Yeah.
And then, that was kind of the beginning of it. But I had felt so bad leading into that it was like anything I did, I would get sick, and obviously polyuria, dyspsia and all that stuff. That I was just really more than anything just relieved to be like, well, shit, I thought I was dying, So, and my body was just eating itself away for so long that, it really should have been caught sooner. But once it was, I was like, all right, this is a diagnosis. Let's just roll with it.
Yeah. Now, I do have to give you a heads up. So I know you played at Michigan State. I'm a huge Michigan fan.
Uh-oh.
So I hope I hope it doesn't ruin the podcast. But obviously, like, being a D1 athlete, and I know I believe you did track for a little while too.
Yeah. So just like my like a year and a half, and then
Okay.
stuck with football.
Yeah. So obviously, when you got diagnosed with diabetes, it was kind of like a little bit of a relief that you knew actually what was going on. So how were you handling, your diabetes throughout the whole, like, the next season or whatnot?
Yeah. So I mean, the unfortunate thing is that it was right after my senior season, like literally like a week or so after. So it was kind of sad in the fact that I was playing more as like a sophomore, junior, but it was like halfway through my junior year, my senior year. I was just trying to survive, practices. I mean, I was like, just on the brink of dying. And the crazy thing was, I remember we were doing summer conditioning, and I'm trying to eat more than anyone on the team. I'm talking about, we got guys 320 pounds. I would eat 3 massive plates of food every single time I sat down. And the more I ate, the more weight I lost. And I remember this thinking like, this is weird. Like, the more I'm eating, the more weight I'm losing, because the blood sugar was just going crazy, right? Nothing was being absorbed. And then certain points we would do really intense conditioning, like just all sorts of hours something workouts, sprints out in the sun, stadium steps. And the more I ran, I would start gaining weight again. So what was happening is I was offsetting it with a crazy amount of intense physical activity, was bringing my blood sugars down. So I was, probably in a range to where I wasn't as malnourished from, being crazy high blood sugars. I remember telling one of my assistant strength coaches that, and he's like, that's crazy, man. Like, what? That makes no sense. I was like, I know it doesn't, but I was just like, I don't know what's going on. So yeah, it wasn't until just after that. And then, I guess I was lucky enough in the way that we had some nutritionists on staff. And at that point, the docs were kind of like, shit, we missed this, which is like, I mean, it's the biggest red flag in the world if you know the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Although I was kind of, honestly, I was trying to hide it, because I was like trying to gain weight. So I was weighing in, weigh in before every single weightlifting session. And we would wear like the football pants where you put your pads in it, the thigh pads underneath our shorts is just like, underwear basically. So I would just slip a 5-pound weight in each of them to make sure that, that they weren't catching on to me losing weight. Right.
Yeah.
That's just crazy and stupid when I go back and think about it. But after that, it was like, my body just responded to, food and stuff again and being in the gym. And it was like, within the matter of a couple of months, everyone's like, shit, Kahn, like, what happened to you? Like, you look good, like you look, beefy and busky. Like, where was this, And then I kind of explained the whole situation to everybody.
Yeah. So when you got diagnosed after like the whole season was over, did your friends kind of understand what was going on with like your new diagnosis at all?
It was weird, and I've seen this with diabetics that are newly onset and some that I've worked with and stuff. I didn't want, and maybe it was the mindset of like it's not broke, don't fix it, or I'm a tough guy in events. I wasn't really telling anybody about it. I told like a few people about it. And then I just kind of kept it to myself for the most part, a few people heard here and there. Because it was like after the season and stuff, so it wasn't as big of a deal as if maybe I was, diagnosed during. But yeah, I don't know if I was ashamed. I just didn't know how to have the conversation. Those weird things about going out to eat. I'd maybe go to the bathroom and do my insulin, and eventually I got over that. And I'm like, A, shouldn't care what people think. And
Yeah.
B, like I don't know, I'm not going to run to the bathroom every time I need a jet because I'm injected so often. So do it here.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you were at a big school and for the Big Ten. There, you must have do you have like any funny stories of like your college experience? Like anything, like doesn't have to be diabetes related.
Shoot. I mean, sports related, I'll say the first game that I played in and traveled to was Notre Dame, and we ended up winning in like triple overtime. And it wasn't my idea, but someone on the team grabbed our flag and ran it to the middle of the field and planted it in the middle of the field. And it ended up being on like the cover of like the newspaper and everything. And I had a lot of people at home back where I'm from didn't even know I was at Michigan State playing there, because I actually had originally taken a scholarship to a smaller D1 school my freshman year. But then I was a preferred walk-on at Michigan State, meaning like you don't have to try out and you're probably going to get a scholarship, but we're not giving you a scholarship out the gate. So then I came back to that. And, by the time I was playing, people were like, hey, I heard you're on so basically I'm on the cover of like the newspaper planting the flag at Notre Dame's field, which is pretty cool, and a
That's
little
cool.
bit surreal, being that's where, Rudy and stuff was filmed, and I had, watched that and enjoyed it growing up.
Very cool. Do you still have the newspaper?
Yeah.
Nice. Is it framed? You have to frame it.
Um, no, I don't have it framed. It's probably just with a bunch of other crap. I'd probably have to dig around to find it.
All good, all good. So, obviously, like the whole season's over. So, is the reason why you kind of got into bodybuilding, was it kind of like an empty space of like not playing sports? Because for me, like I played sports in college. It was like a low, small, like D3 school, and I just felt like kind of empty. Did you have that feeling at all?
Yeah, I remember, right after, it's like, because I mean, as you know, like every minute of like our schedules were given to us, and they weren't like, all right, from 5 to 5:30 you're doing this. It was like from 5 to 5:17 you're doing this, and from you got 3 minutes to get here, so from 5:21 to so there was a void, and obviously I was like, all I knew was like, all right, go in and lift, and I just tried to kind of continue that, but it was a very odd feeling because we would have, I don't know, 5, 6 strength coaches on breathing down us. We're always partnered up, so always someone's pushing you, beating you up. So like you go to the gym alone after that, and it's like crickets and hard. It was really hard to get motivated. But because I was just diagnosed and my body was responding to food again and lifting, it was like I was getting, I was going from like this disheveled, malnourished guy for X amount of time to like, the self I should have been, so I went from like whatever, like, maybe up to like 185, 190, and from like in the 160s, so I mean, I was loving it,
Yeah,
I could have just went in there and just, walked around the gym and I would have gained weight because I was finally getting food and nutrition again.
Yeah, very cool. So, when did you realize you kind of wanted to push like the bodybuilding like a little bit further than like a typical person, like a typical gym goer?
Yeah, so I mean, it was actually quite a while after that. So from there, I went to chiropractic school. I was there for 4 years, and I just stayed in the gym and I lifted, and I would try to eat almost Groundhog Day like meals just for blood sugar control. So it was more about just health and wellness. I just kind of continued lifting, and then I opened my practice. So, at this point I opened right out of school like 28. And, I'd seen a show locally, and I looked, and there was the men's physique division, which is more of like the cover of like Men's Health. Like you wear the board shorts, you don't have to wear like the bikini bottoms and stuff. And I was like, that's cool. I think I could, maybe do that. Maybe I'll put it as like a bucket list thing. Because I had come down here and I played some intramural softball and, flag football. And, as a chiropractor, I'm working with my hands, like, jam my finger and sprain my wrist once. I'm like, I'm getting more injuries playing intramurals than I ever did in college. So maybe I should, align this energy. So, so I was just like, heck, I'll do a show as a bucket list thing. I had always thought it was cool, but I never wanted to look like a massive bodybuilder, So I don't think the men's physique division was really kind of a thing until like maybe 2011. And then at that point, it was kind of like, oh, it's like, bodybuilders without legs, they don't train legs. And it kind of had that kind of stigma around it. But so I did my first local show and ended up winning it. And I remember talking to the judges after, like, yeah, you got a real good look and good structure and stuff. They're like, but you just need to come in a lot more condition. Cause I was in the mindset of like, get bigger and bodybuilding big. And so I was a lot softer than I probably should. I've always been a bit genetic with my abs. So I had, a bit of a six pack there. It's like, you need to lean out to where you get your obliques. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like I've always had a six pack. I've always been in shape, like, yeah. And I had done no cardio for this show. I just lifted a little harder and I didn't really even diet that hard. Now again, it was a little bit easier in those initial years of the division too, but I'm thinking like, I don't have those. And from that point forward, I was like, well, I'll do the national show. So I took the diet a little more seriously, added a little cardio in, and then, I just kind of saw all those little pieces add up and make a difference. And when I did step on the national stage, I was just seeing where my hat would hang with those guys. And long story short, ended up winning, going like 100% into it, ended up winning the show. And then when you do that, you get your pro card. So at that point, I'm like, well, now I guess I have to see what these how I do against the pros. And one thing led to another there. Placed to top 5 in a bunch of pro shows, did the Arnold, got some sponsorships with supplement companies and things like that. And then that's kind of led me to where I am now, which is focusing more on coaching people to compete and people on the diet side of things as well, which is just as fulfilling, but with a little less cardio myself and a little less diet time.
Yeah. So do you think the men's physique is kind of like one of the toughest divisions to kind of like get your start in, or like go pretty far? Because there's like tons of people, from my point of view, I think there's a lot of people that already have that physique and can like easily walk in there and go to a show, compared to like obviously the bigger guys, they have to take like, do a lot more things to get to that level. So do you think it's kind of harder to actually break into that category?
It's become more and more popular, and there's a ton of competitors. There's guys that have it naturally. There's guys that put in a ton of work to get there. The ones at the very top and the ones that are gonna typically be pros are the ones that now have all components. So they're they have the genetics, but they're also have to be extremely hard workers, because it's a 24/7 sport. It's every little thing that you do, which really aligns with being type 1 diabetic, right? Because like this thing follows us everywhere. Like everything that we eat, everything that we do, take a hot shower, what's my blood sugar going to do? Like take a nap, what's it going to do? Every, morsel that we put in our body, if you're dehydrated, I always explain it as it's keeping a scale balance, but instead of 2 sides, you got like 10.
Yeah.
And bodybuilding is similar to where, you have to be very specific on everything that you put in your body, the timing of it all, the rest of it all, the percentages of your macros and your cardio and your caloric intake. So it's very detailed in that way, which I was, kind of doing to an extent with just managing diabetes, to where, a lot of it meshed well for me. So it's difficult in that sense. But what I always tell people too is, if you're going to be wanting to step on stage, the beauty of the sport is it's really you versus you, right? You get to be the clay, and you get to see like, okay, how can I transform my body? What is my body capable of? What am I capable of? Because ultimately, if you're taking yourself to, your best genetic potential, then that's all you can do. So I knew when I had stepped on stage that it was unlike, playing other sports, to where, I was nervous in how I was going to do. So I was like, all right, I put in the work, I'm here. ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's a subjective measure. So whatever that judge thinks is what the placing is, which, is good and bad, right?
Yep.
It's you're either going to like you or they're not, but it's not like you're competing against the guy next to you, not physically.
I gotcha. So,
Yeah.
how did you manage your diabetes throughout, like, getting to like, do you guys do like a dehydration phase, and like, how do you manage your diabetes throughout that like whole process?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's different ways to come into a show. So, you kind of have to see how your body reacts. I had done shows to where I would, cut or deplete water. I had even water loaded into a show because you're gonna get the body to a certain point from a leanness level, and then the rest is like how are those muscles going to fill out. The
Yep.
muscles are majority made of water, so depending on someone's specific anatomy, genetics, how their body responds to those things, then you manipulate them. But like we said, we have 1, 2, 3, 5 more things to think about, and you start cutting water like that, then all of a sudden you see your blood sugar coming up. So then you really either have to be prepared, or you almost have to do little test runs to see how things are going to play out before they play out, because you don't want to be there on show day. Blood sugars are super high. Cortisol ends up being high, and it flattens the physique out, and you don't look as
Full.
three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Because part of it is, that illusion. You got the tan and the overhead lights, and then you like I said, you're filling up with carbs, right? And then you're sucking the water out, and it's all of those components that go together to give you that X amount of seconds on stage, which you're ultimately judged on.
Yeah. So when you're actually training, and like in the like from what I've seen in some videos, that like some people are absolutely miserable for like calorie deficits and stuff like that. How do you still have the mindset that you want to like kind of push through and present yourself well on the stage?
I think if, and I've learned this over time, is like you could push yourself as hard as possible and be miserable for 12, 18 weeks or so, but if you do things the right way, and you're at times doing things that might seem counterintuitive to the goal, and you're eating enough, and you're keeping your metabolism stoked, and you're doing it progressively, it doesn't have to be like this extremely difficult um you know everyday sucks type of thing, and
Hmm.
it really almost seems like it has to be for some people. Some of the guys and people I've prepped before, they're almost like, this doesn't suck enough, it must not be working. And I was like, well, I can make it suck more, but if you throw your body in the fight and flight,
Yep.
right, it's going to fight you. It's
Yeah.
going to think that you're out in the wilderness and there's no food available and you're starving. It's just going to try to hold on to everything. So you have to be clever, you have to trick it, you got to throw refeeds or carb cycles and things at it to kind of keep it guessing, and keep it moving in the right direction. And there's going to be a few weeks that suck, typically at the end, but it doesn't have to necessarily be months.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Now, I have you ever heard of a guy named Marcus Philly?
Not ringing a bell.
So he does this thing called functional bodybuilding. He was like a former CrossFit athlete turned, he retired because he kept on getting absolutely wrecked during like CrossFit workouts, and he's like absolutely like shredded. So whenever you get a chance, you gotta check out his
Sure.
Instagram page. It's like everyone calls him like the Greek goddess because he's like
Yeah,
so ripped. But do you think that someone that just does like CrossFit and functional bodybuilding could actually step on a stage just doing that kind of workouts for the
yeah.
for pretty much for any category?
Um, well, like I said, it depends. Like, you're not going to step on as a bodybuilder being a CrossFitter.
Yeah.
There's too much size. There's too much caloric burn in those workouts.
Yeah.
Like now you could step in stage in men's physique, right? And if you have a nice build, I mean, there's CrossFitters that look great. That if you learn how to suck the air in and pose and position properly, they could step on stage, probably at their whatever they compete at. Some of them, I mean, it surprises me how lean some of these guys can be that do CrossFit and still be so effective from a production standpoint, weightlifting wise, because if you strip the shirts off of collegiate football players, you think they all have ripped, shredded bodies. No,
No,
they don't.
no.
You might have a few guys genetically that do, but for the most part, you got a lot of extra calories on you because you probably have to eat 8K a day just to you know um, be able to perform like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I answered the question.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
no, no, you did. No, most and funny thing is most of those like elite CrossFit athletes, they're consuming like an absorbent amount of carbs every
yeah,
day, like
yeah,
every
yeah,
day. Like I've heard people doing like 600 to 800. It's insane of like the amount of food they're actually consuming. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
So you were talking about you being a doctor and being a chiropractor. So I know that takes like a long time to get done. So like what is it like roughly like 4 or 5 years for the
Yeah,
whole
4 years.
thing?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
Um, I got
All
it done in 3.5. So that they tell you like like, you can get the program done in 3.5. And that's if like you don't fail a single class, basically.
hmm
And I think our class started with like 140, and there's only 30 of us that got through in 3.5 because
Wow.
if you fail one, just based on when those courses are offered, then it sets you back, basically half a year. So I was like, that's nope, I'm getting getting it done. I was lucky to get it done 3.5, but yeah.
Yeah, very good. So what made you get into that kind of that field?
Yeah, I mean, my background and stuff in sports for one. Actually, when I was in middle school, I had playing football, and I kind of jammed my head into the back of another player and messed my neck up pretty good. I had a good experience with a chiropractor then, and my dad had thrown his back out, and I saw it work well for him. And then I grew up with my father being in the construction trade, so like my mind's always been very mechanical and structural and stuff, and our body works in many of the same ways. We got hinges and pulleys, and from a functional standpoint, it's always been something that's interested me. It's been intriguing to understand just how the human body works, because it is really such a cool marvelous miracle if you understand it. So yeah, I was just kind of drawn to it from that side of things, and I thought I wanted to do something in the healthcare field. And when I thought about being a chiro, I was like, that just seemed like it.
Yeah, it clicked.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I know from listening to another podcast, you actually got it done at Life University down in Atlanta, my neck of the
Yep.
woods. So very,
In Atlanta, yeah, yep, yeah,
yep,
Marietta, just outside of Atlanta there, yep.
yep. I live like about a half hour, 40 minutes away north.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's a
Awesome,
good
man.
type, good place. So what were your thoughts about Georgia?
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was cool. It was like a bunch of different pockets. Obviously, it's like, I was a young adult when I was there, but you're in school, so it's kind of like you don't have any money to do much of anything. So,
Yeah.
but I love, going to some of the Blue Ridge Mountains and the hikes and stuff, and having sports teams there. I was actually just back for Michigan State's bowl game, Peach Bowl, so that was
Mhm.
cool to meet up with everybody. And it was kind of being in Atlanta and enjoying like the warmer southern weather and stuff that made me say to myself, okay, I want to start my practice somewhere, in the South, and I've ultimately landed in South Carolina here.
Mhm. Yeah. So what was the final decision for South Carolina?
Just be by the beach, warm weather, golf, um, basically those things. Yeah.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool. Now, I mean, I've heard some chiropractor horror stories before, and like what makes you different compared to like anybody else?
Um, well, some of the horror stories. I mean, I don't know. It depends. I've been. It's 10 years for me, and like I haven't seen a horror story in my office. So, I think movies sometimes dramatize things, and people think like, oh, like when Jean-Claude Van Damme like just walks up and twists someone's head, that they're gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really not like that. And I also practice more personally as a I don't know, you can almost think of me as like a hybrid chiro. So I do a bit of, PT and rehab type stuff, a lot of soft tissue work, like Gratton and, like instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization or active release. A lot of stuff that, athletes and, bodybuilders and stuff can benefit from soft tissue standpoint, because your joints work obviously integrated with your musculoskeletal system. So
hmm
if one's not working right, the other's affected. So try to make sure that we cover all the bases.
Very cool. Now, do you get mad when someone doesn't call you doctor at all?
No, not
Okay.
really. I mean, paid a lot for the letters, but um, no, I mean that's one of the things I do love about being a chiro too. Is like oftentimes people are a little nervous or apprehensive, when they come in, and sometimes they're kind of like, yeah, I'm going for back. They've been nervous to come in, but they're going under the knife in like a couple months, and they're kind of like, I figured I'd give it a try now. So it's cool when you're able to help someone out like that, and they're kind of like, oh wow, like this really works, and they usually like laugh, and then people like to come see us, which is neat, So like I enjoy it. I mean, my patients, and the ones that come for like more wellness care, they've been seeing me as things spring up, or just from time to time to make sure they're moving better. And it's neat because I've garnered those relationships with all sorts of people.
Yeah. I've never been to one. I've always wanted to go to one. I don't know. I just never pulled the trigger.
Yeah, some of the old school guys are, in my opinion, and not to bash the profession, but yeah, every profession has theirs. People. I mean, shoot, you don't want to go to the. I mean, go to the wrong MD, and God knows what sort of poison they're going to give you.
True. Yeah.
And with the chiropractic profession too, the philosophy used to be like, oh, I adjust the bone in place and I fix this and that. And, I think there's been, a wealth of meshing knowledge now with just the ability for practitioners to cross populate and, theories and things to be shared. It's almost where like doctors of physical therapy now are doing a lot more manual therapy and stuff that chiros are doing, and chiros are doing a lot more of the PT stuff, which has been interesting and cool to see.
Yeah.
That's always the direction that I've wanted to see the profession go. I would actually love to be able to prescribe certain medications, for certain things. So if someone is in a ton of pain and they need like an anti-inflammatory painkiller, it'd be nice to say, okay, you can just get it here.
Yeah.
Give you a limited amount, and I'm really going to preach about like, let's use this to just get you out of severe pain, so that we can maybe work on the issue and get you feeling better. Versus like, here's a script for 90 of them, go get addicted,
Yeah.
At the same time, I wouldn't want my malpractice insurance to be as high as that.
Yeah. I'm a big, I don't like taking anything. I'm a big fan of like, working it out in like mobility or anything like that, just to kind of, you know, heal myself instead of like, just popping Advil or whatever, icy hots and stuff. It's like, I don't think it's worth it. It's better to kind of move and, get better that way.
Well, yeah, I would say it should be a hierarchy, right? And I'll use this with my patients sometimes. Like, if I was there and I was standing on your toe right now, your toe's gonna be hurting, right? Like, what's the most logical thing for you to do?
Move.
You're not gonna say like, damn, Brett, my toe's hurting me. Like, will you pass me some Advil? And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, give me something stronger. All
Yeah.
right, it's working, but it's still there. All right, we're gonna go and we're gonna inject the toe, and you're like, that's toe feels good now for 2 days, right? But now the toe's coming back. It's like, okay, we're gonna go in and we're just gonna do a little dissection of the nerve, and but then you have another issue. It's like, okay, well, let's cut the no, like, let's see if structurally, physically, we can just get me off the toe, push me
Mhm.
back, right? And that's sometimes when joints and muscles or postural components to it, or something's not moving correctly. If you can do that, then that's where you should start. Which isn't always the case, because you have a limitation of matter, right? If someone's joint or back is degenerated to a certain extent, you may be able to get them out of pain, you may not be able to, but those tools are always there. But they can be a little more risky and a little more dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very cool. Now, I kind of want to go back to the bodybuilding real quick because I forgot to add this question. So, I've actually seen some YouTube. When I was doing some research on you, I saw some, YouTube videos of you during like bodybuilding.com YouTube channel, like working out with like other bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Who was like one of your most favorite, bodybuilders to train with? Like it could be for like the day, or if someone's close by, like which one was like really stuck out to you? Like, man, like this is like being in another level.
Yeah. I would probably say like Ryan Terry, who's won, the men's physique, Arnold, and, you're always a contender at the Olympia, or Sadiq, Sadiq's, one of the most classic, I think, physiques, from our era that would probably go, he'll be like he's basically the Frank Zane of our time. And him and I had both actually had the same coach when I was competing. which is also a cool part of the sport, is the, networking and, relationships and stuff that you build over time. But yeah, those guys, probably both of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Now, obviously, like it's kind of like a one-on-one person, but like, do you like get friendships throughout the whole process? Like, have you like met like some like good friends? Be like, hey, I know this guy. He's a great guy. Stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, all those guys, I have their numbers, and, you know, when you do what we do as like bodybuilders and stuff, it's kind of like you and I. Like before we met, we're in a club together.
Yeah.
We're like when diabetics. Like we have that like unspoken relationship to where like, okay, I know what this guy goes through on a daily basis, and you kind of have that connection from a humanistic standpoint. And to be able to be as dedicated and put in the time and hours that it takes to you know be at that level and compete at that level, you have that mutual respect and understanding for each other too. And when you get up there with some of those top guys, and I had a period of time when I was competing at that level, but with all that I do now, it's like is either going to be that or run my practice and coach people. And
Hmm.
I took my genetics as far as I could, and I was like, all right, tip the hat. The guys are getting too big for me, and
Yeah.
now I'll go on and coach. But yeah, so yeah, I've been lucky enough to make a good bunch of relationships.
Very cool. Now you talk about coaching. So, what made you get into coaching, pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, I had been cultivating, I guess, the knowledge from playing days to education to understanding more about nutrition, and then taking courses in endocrinology, physiology, all these things. So like it was kind of there on an underlying basis. Actually, I had even without any certification when I was in college, Michigan State would train a couple people here or there, and
Hmm.
just enjoyed that. So once I got a bit of a name competing and stuff locally, people would ask me to coach them, and then I just kind of started taking people on from there. And usually keep it to a limited amount. In the past year, I've opened up more time to coach more people, which has been cool because I've been able to um, be more involved in stuff with it, which has been cool.
Yeah. So, which is better, you winning on stage or seeing one of your proteges that you
Yeah,
coach win on stage?
yeah. It's definitely seeing someone that I've coached win on stage. Yeah, 100%. It's always been like that, when whether it's like a family member or a friend, like or someone I've coached. It's just I don't know. It's emotionally just a different beast.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a lack of control. When
Yeah.
you're there, but like you want them to win so bad. Versus I've always been just at peace with like, all right, I'm cool with, I'm eating my cheat. I'm gonna eat whatever I want after this, so I don't care what happens. Um, but yeah, I mean, the people that I've been fortunate enough to help turn pro, like it's just been super super cool and super fulfilling, and yeah, memories I won't forget. And I
Yeah.
know those guys, it's a point in time in their life where you go through it with them, you push them to that point to get their pro card, and you help someone realize a dream like that is pretty awesome. And I know they're appreciative of it, and we'll have that bond forever.
Yeah, very cool. And I did hear in a podcast you were actually training another type 1 diabetic. Do you have like any other ones that you train, and like how do you handle their diabetes like while they're training?
Yeah. Well, as you probably know, like everyone's diabetes is a little bit different. I probably have, mm, I- I've had more different points in time, but I probably have 5 to 7, right now. Some are competing, some are just, lifestyle people. But everyone's a little bit different. I have a female competitor right now who I've just started working with, and she has done an amazing job of keeping her blood sugars under control. But she's super low carb. She's maybe 15, 20 carbs a day.
What?
And yeah, and she has extremely, extremely tight, maybe the tightest blood sugars I've ever seen, to where she'll adjust down if she's at like 110. And I'm just like, so then, so we're trying to formulate and change our plan and introduce them variance in her macro profile so that we can get her body maybe where it's going to look best on stage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been neat because I've been able to learn. I mean, she's had A1Cs in the fours, where most docs are probably like, okay, you're probably on the brink of hypo too often, and but she's done well with it, and we're see where it goes. But and that's where I don't always try to impress 100% of what I would do, because everyone's body works different, and
Yeah.
it's worked well for her. She's got great control, but at the same time, probably because of and she's been a nurse and been in the diabetes education side of things too. She's scared crazy of carbohydrates. Like, they just terrify.
That's crazy. Yeah, I eat a good
Like,
amount
what
of.
do you mean I need to add 30 carbs? Like, my blood sugar is going to go through the roof. And I was like, it shouldn't. And she's got multiple. She's got a Frieza. She's got Novolog, and she doesn't really use short acting. She just kind of does her basal, and just up with food. So it'd be neat. It'd be cool to see where we go.
Yeah, I mean, I would kill for an A1C with four, like, or for leaving somewhere close to that. So
Yeah. Well, she had an interesting. I said, well, I questioned her. I said, well, what's normal blood sugar? And she's like, 80 to 110. I was like, well, they say 80 to 120, right? So if you're a little bit over that, or maybe you're high normal. And she's like, yeah, but I don't know if I believe that. And I was like, okay. I mean, I could also see where you're coming from. Like, these are studies, and these are normal ranges that are formulated by what population?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Normal, healthy, functioning individuals. But these are normal, healthy, functioning individuals that are on Americanized diets, right?
Yep.
Like, yeah, maybe they're 30-something-year-olds, but they eat McDonald's and processed foods and all this crap. So I think her philosophy is like, I feel like a tighter range of 70 to 100 in her mind is ideal. And it's hard to say this. What the research shows, as long as you're not risking losing your sense of hypoglycemia, and she's under good control, then I'd rather see that than someone that's like okay being in the low twos.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately that's the slow one that gets you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very cool. So we're getting close to the end. So well, one other question about you being a coach before we do that. So, like, what is your because obviously, like, every coach has different styles of training. So what's your style of coaching?
When it comes to like training, I'm a big variety guy. So with most of my clients, I'm going to be changing their plans every 3 weeks, and within that, we may see progressions of certain exercises, but oftentimes, like, the split's going to change. The body parts that we train together may vary. They're often in bodybuilding, they're going to be more body part specific, but
Mm-hmm.
like, there might be it might be a chest day one time, and then arms are done a separate day, and then a different progression might be chest and triceps, or it might be opposing groups. It might be antagonist muscle group paired with it. And I believe in mix it up your rep ranges a lot, circuits and stuff closer to shows to help improve conditioning, things like that.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So here are the final questions. So do you have any goals for the rest of the year? It could be like personal or business wise.
Yeah, I think I'm going to build the coaching a little bit more this year. It's been fun to kind of see it evolve in a more systematic in the way in which I'm doing it. Just with technology out there, I can get people plugged into the computer, with a Fitbit, to where I can see how many steps they're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
I can see all their food intake, and it's cool. It's like I'm the mastermind up here, and I can see all the variables. So I definitely want to grow that some more, and maybe do some more stuff like this, because I always do enjoy it. But sometimes I feel like I'm running around so much I don't have enough time to do similar.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's the same way too. I'm always having like try to find like set days to interview people, and especially like I have 2 young kids, so like literally when you texted me saying, "Hey, we're still on for the podcast," I was like running around getting them a shower, like throwing them in bed and getting this ready. So it's hard, but I mean I love doing this, just in meeting people, like especially like you and like other people that I would have no chance if, I didn't have this to meet you guys.
Sure. No, no, man. I mean, I'm honored to be on the podcast. I'm definitely gonna go back through and listen to some of your other shows and stuff too.
Yeah, very cool. So, do you have a favorite book do you like to read?
I'm always into like more like motivational type books and stuff. The Four Agreements I think is probably my favorite book. Um, I can't remember who wrote it now, but I was going to drop the name, but stuff like that. I always find that it's refreshing and stuff. I find myself just getting into audiobooks, and I try to put them on with like a sleep timer, like 30-40 minutes, and I feel like my OCD brain will pick up little pieces here and there. Hopefully, I pick up enough little good things that I can piece them together.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And then what is in your gym bag?
Oh, my gym bag. Usually some wrist straps for if I'm going heavy with certain things to save the hands. I'll have a pre-workout in there, some BCAAs, and then just gym clothes. Usually
Okay.
layers. I'll usually kind of dress in layers so that I'm, if it's cooler out, I can warm up and then kind of strip down.
Okay. So do BCAAs, well,
Actually, I think I think I have a video on YouTube somewhere that I did with All Max. That's like what's in your gym bag, and it's
okay.
actually how to build like an ideal gym bag, which is something I preach to people too. That are like, oh, I don't have time. And I always tell people, if you put everything that you need, from a clothing standpoint and from like a supplement standpoint in there, and it's with you all the time, then you have no excuse not to go.
Yeah, I'll definitely try to find that and link it to the show too. So,
Cool.
with BCAAs, my problem if I ever take BCAAs, my blood sugar like goes like high 300s, like taking that stuff. Does that ever happen to you at all, or?
No, and that's a unique thing about because I've heard that with other type ones too. Now, I'm not like I sip on them all day. Not necessarily for the nutritional effect, but the fact that I just like a little bit of flavor in my water, and I drink more water with it, if
Yeah.
anything.
Hmm.
I'm lucky enough to get them free, so it'd probably add up otherwise. Um, yeah, yours don't have any sugar or anything in them. Yeah,
No, it
I know.
just anything. It's crazy. So
Yeah,
like,
I know some things. Well, like when you mentioned like Advil, I was thinking like anytime I take Advil, my blood sugar is just
yeah,
skyrocket.
that's why I don't like taking anything. So like you, like when you're bodybuilding, I'm a regimen guy. I kind of eat the same thing over and over and over again. And
Yeah, yeah.
the thing is, I don't get bored with it. So it's just like because I know I'm using it to fuel my body. So it's like,
Most
and
people do
plus,
anyways. They're just doing a bologna sandwich and like, some crap food.
yeah,
Yeah,
true, true. I'm gonna go a little deep on this question. So
sure.
let's just say this is your last day on Earth, and how do you want people to know you as?
Yeah. Ooh. I don't know. I would say, friends, family, or people that I have coached that I'm kind of like a champion for them, like I've always felt like I've, you know, rooted for people to do well, and I like to see people succeed. And I may not always be like running up to someone trying to give them my advice, but whenever someone asks for it or if I can help them, I always enjoy that and try to pass it forward because people have done that for me. Mentors, coaches, people I've picked their brains, and I think if more people were willing to ask the questions, they would get more answers. Sometimes people are nervous to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I have a motto called "Screw it, just do it."
Yeah.
And so I read a book by Richard Branson. That was the book called "Screw It, Just Do It," and that's how like that's how I started this podcast. That was how I started like asking people questions about like certain things and stuff like that because it's just like that people want to help out. Like, well, some people. So
Yeah.
and they want to help out, and so obviously, kind of, especially the older generation, they want to show like show what they've learned through the years to bring it on to somebody else. So I'm a big proponent of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So where can people reach out to you if they have any questions about like bodybuilding, getting on your program, or anything like that?
Yeah. Really the only social media that I'm active on is my Instagram, which I'm not overly active on there. Most of it you'll see is just some of the stuff that I do with my supplement sponsor stuff, but it's just at Brett Kahn. So BRETTKAHN.
All right, very cool. Well, thank you very much for doing this. It's always awesome to talk to another diabetic. I always call people that I've talked to that are diabetic buddies.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I do appreciate it, and thank you for taking some time because I know you're a busy guy, and I do appreciate everything from our conversation.
Of course, man. I appreciate you having me.
All right, thanks.
Cool. Thank you.